It's wet, it's rainy, it's windy, it's cold. In this video, we're going to talk about all things Oregon coast weather. Can you handle it? Stay tuned to find out. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from the Oregon coast. And in this video, we're going to talk about Oregon coast weather. The Oregon coast is a really big region, right? From Astoria to Brookings, you have 363 miles of coastline. So of course there can be a lot of variation, but I think more than not, you're getting a lot of consistency with the weather you're getting, in particular on the northern coast and on the central coast. The southern Oregon coast does tend to be a little bit warmer. We're going to talk about all of that in this video, but overall, the Oregon coast is wet, windy, rainy a lot of the year. Now, it can be a very pleasant place to live when you're looking for more mild temperatures. So I think one of the biggest things to know, and one of the biggest things that actually attracts people to the Oregon coast in terms of weather, is you aren't going to get these weather extremes. It's not going to get too hot. It's not going to get too cold. In fact, the majority of the year, you're really living in between 40 and 60 degrees. Now, there can be a lot of variation within that. 50, 55 can feel cold if it's wet and the wind is blowing, or if it's, mid 50s and it's sunny out, calmer air, not a lot of wind, it can feel a little warmer. It can feel a little more pleasant. So a lot of this will depend on where you're coming from, what you're used to, and how quickly you can get acclimated. But one of the biggest draws to the Oregon coast is in fact the weather, and that is because it is going to be a lot milder. So we talk to a ton of people coming from different climates in California, Arizona, Texas, places that are really, really hot a lot of the year. You don't get a lot of variety either in terms of the seasons changing and things like that. A lot of people want to escape the heat, come to a cooler climate. A lot of people talk about the health benefits too. It's a lot easier to breathe. It's a lot easier to sleep at the Oregon coast and in a climate like the Oregon coast has than in some other areas of the country. So is the weather something that is attracting you to the Oregon coast? Is the weather something that you're a little bit worried about? Maybe you love the ocean, love the beach, love the scenery and the landscape, but you're used to sunshine all the time and you're maybe a little bit worried about all those gray days that you're going to get throughout the year. Well, again, we're going to talk about all of that in this video. And if this is your first time to the channel, or if you've been here and you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video, which is about once a week. And we've helped so many people relocate to Oregon and move to the Oregon coast. And as real estate professionals, we love to help with that process. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to the Oregon coast. Okay, so weather at the Oregon coast, let's talk about it. I think by and large, you're going to get a lot of gray, overcast days. You'll get a lot of days with some moisture in the air, some mist, or some heavy rainfall periodically. You don't typically get dumping rain from sun up to sundown all day, every day. It's gonna come in spurts, but there's a lot of times, especially in the fall, winter, and spring months, a little bit of moisture in the air, a little bit of that Oregon mist, that Oregon coast mist, that is something that is kind of nice. But if you're in it all day, every day, in a place that you're living, it is going to be a little bit of an adjustment because it's unique to a coastal climate for sure. So at the Oregon coast, you have really wet winters, relatively dry summers, and mild temperatures throughout the year. Like we were talking about, you're typically going to be living between 40 and 60 degrees for the majority of the year. The hottest time of the year is going to be July, August, and September. So right in the heart of summer during those summer months, no surprise there. The Oregon coast is also a really windy place, and some areas can be windier than others. So that's something that we can talk about when you're engaged in a home search and trying to narrow down what areas to live. A lot of it depends on these headlands. So you have, these geological formations that kind of come out more from the coastline. I'm not a geologist. I'm also not a meteorologist. But from what I understand, where you have headlands and, mass of land that comes out kind of, from the coastline, those are going to get hit with wind a little bit more. And then if you're inside of a headland, you can kind of be tucked away a little bit from the wind. So that can vary a little bit, but really anywhere on the Oregon coast that you are, anytime you're at the beach, you're going to experience some wind. So it's not a question of, is it going to be windy? It's just, how windy is it going to be on that day? The southern third of the Oregon coast does tend to be a little bit warmer on average, get a little bit less precipitation as well than the northern section and the central section of the Oregon coast. So this is primarily due to something called the Chetco effect, where there's some warm wind that gets pushed down the Chetco River and then right out where kind of Brookings and Gold Beach are. You can really kind of experience this or start to see the weather be a little bit warmer anywhere south of Cape Blanco and Port Orford. So not a ton of towns in this area. Really, you just have Port Orford, Gold Beach, and Brookings. But these are some great areas that a lot of people really tend to like. They are a little bit more isolated, but the weather in and of itself is something that really draws people to the southern third of the Oregon coast. So you're definitely going to notice a difference, again, about south of Port Orford than on the northern and central Oregon coast. All right, let's talk about some of the seasonal variation and what you can anticipate living on the Oregon coast, because it's going to be a little bit different depending on where you live, but it's also really going to vary depending on time of year as far as what you're experiencing. Really, the reputation and what you might be worried about is a lot of the gray and the rain, and in particular with the rain, one thing to know is it rains a lot. And to put this into context, the Oregon coast gets 75 inches of rain on average in a given year. So the national average is 30 inches. Portland and a lot of Western Oregon, the average is going to be 43 inches. So you're looking at almost double the volume of rain over the course of a year on the Oregon coast. So again, it's not like you're going to be getting these torrential downpours, for long periods of time. A lot of this precipitation volume, a lot of this rain is going to come in smaller spurts and smaller increments by volume too. So again, it's going to be kind of wet and moist, and misty in the air for long periods of time, more so than you're getting just totally dumped on all the time. And the majority of rain that you're going to get is going to come between October and May. So coming into the fall through winter and then into about the middle of spring is really when you're going to get the majority of the rain. The later spring into summer and early fall, those months do tend to be a little bit drier. So you're not, completely shifting in terms of climate. It's not going to be totally sunny and quote unquote great weather every day in these warmer months. I mean, you're definitely going to get rain through the summer. You're definitely going to get gray days with overcast and days that aren't that warm, but we'll talk about the summer here in a moment. But again, it is important to know that it's really about half the year is when you're getting the majority of this precipitation. So with the summer being the warmer months coming into the fall, you do start to get into some cooler nights, crisper mornings, a little bit cooler weather. You're going to be, really kind of in the 50s. You can get some days over 60. You can get some days in the 40s for sure. The sun is typically going to stick around through October. So into October through October, into even some early November, you can get a lot of nice sunny days on the Oregon coast. But this is really the time of year where the weather starts to turn. And as you go from warmer months to cooler months, you can get a lot of storms in this time of year too. So you can get winds up to 60, 65, 70 plus miles an hour. And actually storm watching is a pretty big attraction on the Oregon coast. So a lot of people do like to get out and view the storms. It can be a little dangerous. You got tree branches flying everywhere. And it's not necessarily the safest environment, but and you actually do hear of some fatalities occasionally as well, from the highways to closer to the coast where these winds are high. I mean, this can do some damage. It's not something you probably need to worry about too much. I think moving to the Oregon coast as a homeowner, this is something to definitely keep on the radar, that there is the potential for these storms and these really, really windy periods that can do short-term and long-term damage to your house, at least without kind of routine maintenance to your home. So definitely something to think about. But the falls are generally pretty pleasant. The tourism definitely extends into the fall. People definitely go to the coast in the fall, so it does tend to be or remain pretty busy through the fall months, but this is where it starts to get a little bit cooler. Now, temperatures do stay pretty moderate in the winter. The winters are going to be pretty mild. So I know we talked about people coming from warmer climates where it's really, really hot all the time, or especially in the summer, you have these crazy heat waves. But there's a lot of people coming from colder climates too, northern climates that have a lot of snow and ice. And really wintry weather that they're up against in the colder months of the year. So you're not going to get that on the Oregon coast. You're typically going to be living between low 40s and low 50s. Really from 40 to 55 degrees is going to be about the average throughout the winter. And you can get some nice warmer days. You can get some, sneaky sunny days in the winter. I can recall plenty of days in December, January, February where it's 55, 60 plus degrees, sunny, not very windy, feels really nice. I mean, you can put shorts on and you're right in the middle of winter. We definitely can get some colder weather too. So there's definitely going to be spells where you are in the mid 30s, maybe to 40 degrees. And there's probably going to be at least a couple weeks throughout the year where, in the morning and in the evening and overnight, it is going to be 30, 35, right around freezing. So you really don't see temperatures drop below 30 on the Oregon coast. Now, with the wind chill on a really cold day, it can feel a lot colder than that. You're also not going to get a ton of snow. So you might see snow falling every year, but you're very rarely going to see snow actually accumulate in really any of the communities up and down the Oregon coast. Now, ironically, a couple of days ago, Western Oregon just got the second most snowfall ever on record. And I know in a lot of towns on the Oregon coast right now, there is 1 to 3 inches on the ground. So that's incredibly rare. Definitely something you're not going to see very often. But for example, a couple of days ago when the snow was coming in, I was in Lincoln City and headed east right as the snow started to fall, and just about 5 miles east of Lincoln City, you climb a few hundred feet in elevation and the highway was just covered in snow. Cars slipping everywhere. Saw a couple cars like off the road, like in a ditch. It was actually kind of scary, but again, really not something that every year you're going to have to worry about. And even when the snow does come in a lot of these coastal communities, not something you're going to have to worry about being up against. Now, moving into the spring, typically you're going to start seeing some warmer days. The season's going to be changing a little bit. You're definitely going to get a lot of overcast and rain moving into the spring and through kind of mid-spring up until May, really up and even through June and into around the 4th of July. A lot of people say in Oregon and Western Oregon, summer really starts around the 4th of July. But come May on the Oregon coast, you can start getting some nice sunny days. You're going to be more like 50 to 60 degrees. You can be high 50s in the spring, especially mid to late spring. So it's going to become a lot more pleasant, a lot easier to get out and do things, even if you do have some of those rainy days still sticking around. Then again, you get through May into June and into the summer, it's going to become warmer and warmer. It's going to get a lot drier. Again, these are the driest months of the year, being July, August, and September. You're going to be kind of low 60s to high 60s on average, and you can get plenty of days up around 75, 80, even 85 degrees. Western Oregon gets a lot of heat waves throughout the year in the summer. So in particular, kind of July, August, and September, you can get a lot of stretches where, like in Portland, it might be 95 degrees to 100 degrees, low hundreds. When you're out at the coast, in those circumstances, it's probably going to be about 85 to 90 degrees. So you can definitely get those stretches of what's going to feel like some pretty hot weather once you've become acclimated. But I think, at the coast, 90 degrees, that's going to feel pretty hot. But I think with the all the other kind of weather events that you're up against throughout the year, with the rain and the wind and everything, I think some of those really hot days are probably pretty welcomed for the most part. Now, one thing I will warn you of, depending on where you live, but when it's hot like that in Oregon, from Portland down to Eugene, all the population of Oregon pretty much that lives in Western Oregon, in this Willamette Valley, they're going to head west. A lot of people like to head west on those hot days to escape the heat. So when it's hot, you're going to get you're going to get an influx of people coming in to hang out on the beach. The restaurants are going to be crowded. So, that can make things feel a little bit more lively for sure. But you're going to be up against a lot of people coming out there. And the Oregon coast is a place that has a lot of things to offer in terms of outdoor activities. You have fishing, boating, surfing, beach combing, kayaking, paddleboarding. You can go clamming. A lot of people like to do nature photography. And it's just a great place to, spend time outside, go for a walk on the beach, go for a hike up in the mountains, and everything in between, walk around town. On the other hand, there's quite a few things to do that are indoors. You have aquariums and museums and art galleries and breweries and wine tasting rooms and shops and arcades. All these things down the line. Now, if you live near a little bit of a larger town or a town that has some of these attractions, you're going to be able to access some things to do indoors. If you live in more of an isolated area where it's not as accessible to get to a town or a population center on the coast, there's not going to be as many indoor activities except for, staying at home, hanging out in your living room, which a lot of places you might live on the Oregon coast. You look out your window, you see a bunch of big, beautiful trees. You have all these coastal species of trees and pines and spruce and, Doug firs and things like that. Or if you're lucky enough, you have a water view, you have an ocean view or a river or a lake, you can see the beaches, things like that. So not a bad place to be indoors necessarily in a lot of places on the Oregon coast. But either way, of course, the weather is going to affect how you operate in your day-to-day, your activities, the things you get out and do. And the climate, for a lot of the year is not necessarily conducive, for some people at least, to spending a lot of time outside. Now, it's not incredibly cold necessarily, but pretty much any time throughout the year, even in the summer a lot of the time, if you're going down to the beach, you want to wear a sweatshirt, anywhere from a sweatshirt, long sleeves, to a heavy coat, a raincoat. And so you're definitely going to want to dress for the weather and be ready to dress accordingly. When people think about beaches, when people think about going to the beach, they might think about bringing an umbrella and a beach towel, laying out, catching some sunshine on the beach. That's not going to be something you're doing on the Oregon coast. Now, bring a chair, bring a towel, but bundle up. But I think the question that a lot of people really should be asking is, okay, is this something that I really feel like I can handle long term? In a place that I'm actually living and spending every day, because it can feel heavy. It's very moody, it's windy. Again, you have the rain and the overcast and the clouds, and the weather can change a lot. So I think it's going to be really hard to live at the Oregon coast and not let the weather kind of be at the forefront of a lot of your decision making in terms of what you're going to be doing with your day-to-day life as far as activities, your wardrobe, recreationally, what you're going to do, socially, what you're going to do, all of that good stuff. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about the Oregon coast weather, maybe, more specifically in different towns, let us know. Give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, click the link down below in the description of the video, schedule a Zoom call with us. And on that call, we can talk about your timeline for your move to the Oregon coast. We can talk about your priorities, your budget, and put together a game plan to make sure that, ultimately you're going to have success in your move. If this video was helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. If you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We really appreciate you watching, as always, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.